What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. We're going to take a look at South Park Snow Day here on the Steam Deck, the Legion Go, and the MSI Claw. Starting off with the Steam Deck here. Now, I didn't have to force any compatibility layers. I haven't had any crashing problems here on the Steam Deck, and it's just worked pretty well for me. And I'm at 4 gigabytes of VRAM, but it does work on 1G as well. For settings, I just stuck with all medium. I felt like it was good enough for me here, and 800p, VSync, and motion blur turned off. And on the Steam Deck OLED, I felt like this looked and ran really well for me. I was actually kind of surprised because I tested this last over the other two devices, and I think I really prefer playing this on the Steam Deck OLED. It's just overall a pretty good experience and really smooth, but you'll see as we get into the other platforms as well. They all have their little hiccups and dips. It's just kind of the way things are here, but the Steam Deck actually running this really well. This is just the little hub area. Let's move over to some combat. Now, things can get pretty busy. I've played through a few more levels, or a couple more levels since filming this, and have seen some more busy areas, but I've always basically stayed above 30 FPS. We get those dips down every now and then, and you'll see that on the other systems as well, where we'll go from 40 or 50s all of a sudden and bam, down to 30 something and back up. And that's just kind of par for the course here with the game and kind of how it's working, but for the most part pretty good. So all in all, with these settings, I was usually 40s and 50s, even in areas where things would tend to get busier later on. So yeah, like I said, performance for me here on the Steam Deck, and I did play this over on my LCD deck with 1G VRAM as well, and really noticed very little, if any, major differences there for that. It might ran a little hotter, a little less battery life, and maybe a couple FPS less here or there, but for the most part, pretty good experience. So I don't think you'll have to worry too much there between like models or your VRAM options for South Park here. Now, as far as the game itself, I'm actually having a good time with it. If you're a South Park fan, I mean, it's a simpler $30 game, 4-player co-op or on your own with NPCs. Basically going through 5 different chapters of the game and completing objectives and stuff like that, kind of hack and slash. And yeah, it's much simpler than the past games, and it is the 3D animation. I personally like it. I think it looks really good here. And yeah, I've been having a good time with it. So it just depends, I guess, on what you're looking for out of this game. But its performance here on the Steam Deck for me has been good. I'm really enjoying it on here. Now let's go ahead and move over and take a look at the Legion Go. Now 1200p and 800p would really be my options here. I'm sticking with medium settings on these handhelds. It just seems to be the better place, especially when things get pretty busy. And we'll get into it here starting with the 1200p, and I'm just using the 20 watts performance mode handheld here. That's the mode I use a lot on the Legion Go. If you are running 25, you get some few less dips or less lower lows on your FPS, but it's not by a lot. The 20 watts typically for this game is giving me similar performance to 25, so that's just something to be aware of. But yeah, this same area at 800p though, much better performance, of course, and I think ultimately that's what we're going to want to do in this game, is run 800p with these medium settings. It just mitigates a lot of the little issues we have. But yes, I was able to get away with 1200p. It's just going to come down to 30 FPS. Sometimes it comes even lower than that in certain areas. But here's like a busy area here, jumping into some combat. You'll see 25 FPS, then it bounces back up. It does struggle from time to time when it gets really busy. I did try doing plugged in, and I had the same kind of issues, and with all the handhelds with that. So they all have like their moments of these skips and hiccups and issues. This is much less though when I go from the 1080p over the 800p, which we'll do here in a second, and I can lower these shadows from medium to low and gain a little bit more too, and so that's just something you can look at as well. We're also still running 4 gigs of VRAM in the BIOS for the Legion Go here, and at 800p you can see combat and everything does hold up much better. I just think 800p still looks great on this screen. You get a higher FPS overall on the higher refresh rate screen, and it helps mitigate some of those issues where the stutters are happening and there's effects happening and it just kind of suffers. It does seem to help with that. So definitely the way I would go, but I did want to show both options here when it comes to Legion Go and South Park. Now, one thing I do love about the Go, though, is the screen. It's still one of my favorite screens on any of the handhelds, just the sheer size and immersiveness of it and the colorfulness of it. It works really well with this South Park game. So it's really tough. I really love playing it on the OLED, and I also really enjoy it here on the Legion Go. So I guess it's great to really have all these options these days to play these games. But yeah, it can be a little rough at 1200p here, as you can see. So switching back over to 800p, and things look pretty good. All right, so let's go ahead and do our last handheld, the newest one, the MSI Claw with Intel. So let's check that out with South Park here. Now I'm just going to run performance mode here. It's pretty much the same performance in AI, performance or balance for the most part. Battery saver or manual, you can get the TDP down lower. But we'll just stick with performance mode here. We'll do a little bit of plugged in, mostly handheld though. I did start this handheld first, so I was on high textures and medium, 1080p, and I did wind up having to make some changes. Yes, 720p is going to be the way to go. Just like 800p is on the other devices. If you're on an Ally, 720p still, or 900p if you want would be better than 1080. And textures down to medium seems to help me in some of the areas as well, especially later on. So, but that's where I had started this one, and performance was okay. It would stutter more than the other handhelds with these settings. Even plugged in, it would dip and have some issues. And this device in particular, right now at launch especially, is definitely having some power balance issues between the CPU, GPU side, and it'll kind of get slammed, especially unplugged, and it'll drop those GPU clocks and you stutter or lose performance. There's lots of things that can happen there. But anyway, going to unplugged, 49 FPS, we go back to 49 FPS. And something I've noticed with this game, which I like, is max performance pretty much stays the same whether I'm plugged in or unplugged. It's the lower lows or the stutter times, or when you get hit with load-ins and there's big drops, those are less frequent when you're plugged in versus handheld. But as far as the upper performance, is basically the same for me. Now I'm going to switch this over to 720p before we go to the medium textures, and of course we're going to instantly get a boost in performance just like we did on the Legion Go for 800p, and it runs great on the deck OLED at 800p. So this is kind of where it's at. 720p for the MSI Claw runs the game pretty well. You're still going to get some pretty big dips here and there. It's just kind of, again, par for the course kind of nature of things. This is when I went ahead and backed the textures back down to medium, which did help me a little bit from time to time with some of those stutters and stuff. We do have VRAM issues to battle with when it comes to the MSI Claw as well. I do wish we could allocate like 4 or 6 steady and test some things there as well. But this was a fairly intense area. There's a lot happening here, a lot of NPCs in combat in this spot, and it would hold fine for a little bit, and it would dip and have its issues. Now, I had this on the other handhelds as well, but never quite like this. It would definitely get worse on the MSI Claw, especially unplugged, when it would get hit and it would just lose its performance, and then it would recover and so on. And this just kind of happens when things get busy. And it's not just this game on the Claw, it's just the way that it is. But anyway, South Park Snow Day on all 3 of the handhelds. I really enjoy the Steam Deck OLED and the Legion Go. MSI Claw is fine, but it wouldn't be my go-to for this game if I had the option. But if you just have the MSI Claw, it is running on there. Some tweaking can get it to do pretty good. All right, guys, thanks a lot for coming to check out the video as always. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one.